Hidden deep within the Elderwood lies Elderroot Hollow, a quiet little village built around still water, mossy bridges and old forest magic. As you enter the village, the first thing you'll notice is the water weaving its way through the centre of the build. This pond actually started as a simple idea, using layered rugs, foliage and a lot of experimentation to create the illusion of shallow water and rocky edges. And right in the centre of Elderroot Hollow sits the heart of the village, the Elderwood Gazebo. I raised it up using a hidden red present underneath so it could feel elevated above the pond, almost like it was resting naturally on old stones rising out of the water. As you move further through the village, the bridges and pathways slowly guide you around the water from different angles. I tried to make every viewpoint feel cinematic, so no matter where you stop, there's always something cosy to look at. From here, you can really see how the gazebo becomes the centrepiece, tying the whole build together. At the back of the village, the forest opens out onto the water. I used builders' bridges out of Bounds to create this little wooden pier stretching out over the lake. The cosy camping gazebo, the sound of the water, the lanterns flickering at night. It feels like the kind of place you would come after a long adventure, just sitting out here quietly for a while. Just beyond the waterfront, tucked beneath the trees along the river's edge, is a quieter little corner of the village. I imagine this as a peaceful place to spend the afternoon, reading a book, sharing lunch, or simply listening to the water moving through the hollow. And from here, we'll cross another bridge suspended high above the water below. I really love how layered this build became with all the bridges and the elevation changes. It makes Elderroot Hollow feel much larger and more connected. This area was originally planned as a marketplace for the village, but for now, it remains a simple seating area overlooking the water, along with a small painting nook for the village artist, someone inspired by the beauty of the hollow itself. And as we move further into the village, we begin entering the more lively commercial side of the hollow. The bakery sits nestled beneath the trees, with little tables scattered outside for villagers to sit and enjoy tea, fresh cakes and tiny sandwiches, while listening to the sounds of the village around them. I really wanted this area to feel warm and welcoming, like the kind of place the villagers would naturally gather throughout the day. And inside the bakery, every shelf is overflowing with pies, pastries and baked treats. I imagine this place smelling like warm bread, cinnamon and sweet cream. Tucked away in the corner is a little jukebox, softly playing lo-fi music that drifts out through the open windows, making the whole area feel cosy and inviting. And just across another bridge sits the village tailor. This is where the people of Elderroot come to have their clothes altered, custom garments designed, or even simple household things like curtains hemmed and repaired. I also imagine the tailor crafting their own silk fabrics here by hand, adding another small trade that helps the village feel self-sufficient and lived in. As we make our way back through the village, past the tailor and the bakery, we arrive at another of the communal gathering spaces in the hollow. At the centre sits the bellflower fountain, surrounded by overflowing flowers and soft greenery that help the whole area feel calm and alive. And just beside it, a long dining table, large enough for a family, friends and travellers passing through the village. I imagine this is a space where people gather at the end of the day to share meals together while listening to the sounds of the forest around them. And just ahead is the village farmer's store, where locals buy fresh produce, seeds and everything needed to grow their own food. One of my favourite little design tricks in this build is also right here. I used the Kilima gazebo placed on top of a red present so I could tuck it perfectly into the wall of the structure and create the feeling of a built-in greenhouse. It ended up becoming the perfect space for all the seed makers and worm farms while still blending naturally into the village aesthetic. And out the back, the vegetable garden is thriving with ripe tomatoes, potatoes and juicy apples ready for harvest. As we move back towards the front of the village, we'll get a closer look at the custom structure surrounding the shipping bin. I always enjoy finding ways to make essential in-game items feel immersive within a build, so I built this little wooden structure around it. And the hanging purple wisteria gives the whole space this soft magical feeling, almost like the forest itself has grown slowly around it over time. Now we're heading back toward the right side of the village where my home and workshop are tucked away. And along the way, we pass this tiny little food stall. I imagine it selling warm, sticky treats and sweet festival-style snacks, the perfect thing to grab while wandering through the hollow and exploring everything the village has to offer. Now we've arrived at my workshop, and you'll notice the Kilima pavilion tucked tightly against the front of the building. I really tried to blend it in as seamlessly as possible so it feels like a natural extension of the workshop rather than the separate structure. As we head up the stairs, we're met by the blacksmithing area, with the anvil out front and centre along with the saws tucked in behind it. And over here is one of my favourite custom details in the workshop. It ended up adding so much warmth and texture to the whole space. The back of the workshop is the glass crafting station, and beside it I created this cosy little reading and resting nook filled with bookcases, seating and a coffee table, and a small little sink area. I really wanted the workshop to feel lived in, not just functional, but somewhere someone could comfortably spend hours crafting. On the opposite side of the room is my crafting bench, modification bench and storage area, all neatly tucked away into the new glass conservatory window. And here in the front of my house is a large table tucked beneath an umbrella, set up with snacks, cocktails, and even a board game waiting to be played. With the barbecue nearby and the forest surrounding the space, I imagine this a perfect spot for a slow Saturday afternoon gathering with friends. It feels really relaxed, cozy, and a little bit nostalgic. As soon as you enter the home, you're greeted by one of my most favourite ways to decorate entry spaces in Palia. A layered console table filled with candles, flowers, crystals and little trinkets, all colour coordinated to match the aesthetic of the home. I started doing variations of this in almost every house I decorate because it instantly makes a space feel warm and lived in. And through the doorway we arrive in the kitchen. One of my favourite little custom details here is the oven. I use the flick technique to place an outdoor fire pit in the bottom so it always glows with warm firelight, making the kitchen feel constantly cosy and active. To the left, you'll see my preserving crafters, and tucked away yet into another glass conservatory window are the stoves and chopping stations. And I used a mix of the flick technique and the cup method throughout the kitchen to pull everything tightly together to create a more seamless custom look. Now we'll make our way back through the entry hall into the combined living and dining space. I really wanted this room to feel cosy and practical without becoming overcrowded. And the conservatory windows ended up being absolutely perfect for creating these little built-in areas throughout the house. And here, it allowed me to tuck in the dining table neatly into the space while still having enough room to comfortably move around toward the staircase. As soon as we reach the top of the stairs, you're greeted by the wisteria-covered pergola hanging above the bed. It's used almost like a canopy, and honestly, it adds so much softness and whimsy to the room. And above the bed is a photo of Hadari. If Singularity 6 ever lets us marry characters in Palia, Hadari better be ready. And finally, at the front of the bedroom, we have one last conservatory window. Now this one might be slightly controversial though, because I tucked in an entire bathtub into it. To be fair, the views here are absolutely beautiful, although I suspect the villagers might also agree, but for very different reasons. And finally, we step out onto the rooftop terrace overlooking the Elderroot below. This might be one of the most peaceful spots in the entire build and the perfect place to end our tour of the Hollow. So thank you so much for exploring the Hollow with me. I hope this build was able to inspire some ideas for your own Palia home and maybe even encourage you to experiment with creating little stories within your builds too. And until next time, happy building, lovely!